I don't normally do the recording. You guys are just getting used to it. Okay, so SQL map minus U, and we've got to go to this site again, so I'll just copy this. And in there. What does it grab when it's on? Yep. So I just grabbed the thing, but it actually also keeps the HTTP colon. So SQL map minus U, the IP address, etc. Can we get away with not having to put anything else? Say hyphen hyphen dump hyphen hyphen columns. So I want to dump the columns, right? Tables for the database Seth. Now, this is all in this kind of help sort of stuff, right? It's a bit hard to sort of see, but okay, there you go. Dump database table entries, right? We can just dump all, right, for example, right? Or minus D and then the database. So that's the Seth database. We're saying, okay, I want the tables and I want the columns. Right. So dump the columns, the tables for Seth. And it's going to try and go away and do it. And what's it got for me? Well, it's not exactly easy to read. I'll do it again so that'll be a little bit easier to read. There we go. An ID, a password, a user, and a position. Okay, so what have we found? What have we found so far?
That's data, isn't it?
Well, what's that? What is that? Right, we've got an ID, a pass. Yeah, it looks like a password, right? And a username. And it's blank. And then we've got an employee which has a password that says not allowed. So do we think that's a legitimate password?
Probably not.
No, look, that's not a password. Right. Not a password at all. So that person is not allowed to log in or something. It's kind of like in Linux sometimes, for example. See here, for example, it says user sbin no login. Now this is the I should have just grabbed one. This is the etc password file. Now there's no password stored in this file, by the way, but this is all the user accounts on the Linux system, for example, right? And so these people are not allowed to log in. That's what it says there, right? They're not allowed to log in, no login. So they're not expected to. So this guy here, ISIS, is not allowed to log in, right? However, we have something there for this user. So what have we got? What do you guys think we've got? Well, it's obviously a password. Do you think that is the actual password? Let's try it. How can we try it? Can anyone remember what ports are open? Right, port 80. Any other ports? Six. Page or seven. Oh, it's 7. Glad I checked.
Yeah, it's 111 and 777.
So port 80. Right. 111, 777. Okay, fair enough. 777 has what though?
Shell.
Yeah, that's got Open SSH, right? So it's a SSH service. All right. So where is normally SSH, by the way? Where would we expect to find SSH?
23.
Yeah, look, we would probably expect to find it 22, very, very close. SSH is normally on port 22. So it's not there though, right? So they've moved it, right? What have they done? Look, they've just shifted it to another port. That's fine. So let's try SSHing to it. All right, so I'm going to say SSH. I'm going to choose the user account. What user account are we going to choose? Well, probably Ramses, right? ISIS isn't going to work. Let's go Ramses, SSH, Ramses at 10.0.2.7. That's my the IP address I've got for that. 10.0.2.7. So do whatever IP address you've got. And then I'm going to say -P 777. All right.
Can you also do :777, or is it just P?
Good question. I think colon will work. No, doesn't like it. Where does colon work? Colon works for some. Oh, colon works for like web pages and stuff like that. And I think in Windows, yeah. Okay, so are we sure we want to continue? All right, look, we're connecting. We're connecting. And it asks for my for the password. All right, so I'm going to copy this password. Because I'm not going to type it, right? It's too long. And I can paste the selection. And that's actually going to paste it, but nothing changes on my keyboard, right? I expect that, right? You never see your password. And I try that password, and it says no. Computer says no. Look, you could try, like, copy the selection. All right, I've got a little notepad up here. So I'm just going to double check that, make sure that I've got the right thing in my paste. Yeah, okay, so that's the right thing. All right, copy, paste. The password's not working.
Could that not be the password? Maybe could it be encrypted and you've just pulled that out from the table?
Yeah, now you're on the right idea, right? So that doesn't look like his password. I mean, look, if that was truly the person's password,
it's phenomenal, but it's
it's like 26 characters long or something like that. It's like massive. How many? I don't even know how many it is. But it's that's pretty phenomenal.
Considering how that other password to get in before was just the word elite.
Yeah, it's it's pretty long. However, so what do we got to do? Well, we've got a hashed password of some kind, right? So what do you think it's going to be? What type of password do you think it's going to be? What is this?
Is that 256-bit encryption, or is that what you're asking? Or
yeah, it could be. It could be some sort of MD5 hash and stuff like that. There's lots of different options available. I think if I had to take a guess, I'd say it's like an MD5 hash, which has turned it into what's called a base 64. Right. So there's a few ways you can kind of tell, maybe, hopefully, what it is and stuff like that. First of all, there's no special characters in there, right? It's one of the first things I sort of noticed is there's no real special characters and stuff. So that lets me know it's a bit of a funny one, right? Quite often, and you might, let's see.
I'll ask you if that's where the passwords are. And shadow?
This is where my password is, for example, on my Kali Linux system, right? Notice it's got some funky characters in there, right? It's got like a hash and some dots and stuff like that. Now, by the way, these dollar signs mean something, right? So this is telling me the encryption algorithm. This is the salt, right? And then this is the actual password. Right? So that's how it's kind of broken up in this case, right? There's information in here. And it goes all the way down to here. You know, this is basically my password. Then, you know, there's some other stuff going on and some aging and all sorts of cool stuff, right? That's how an MD5 password, or not an MD5, sorry, it'd be like a SHA-256, I think the number 6 is. So the password's obviously not this. Hey, I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm going to turn off the. I'm turning off my video because it's. I'm running off my phone now. Telstra has been up and down all day today. They're supposed to have finished work already. I think they're still working on it. Or if they're not, they're about to get a very nasty text message to their chat line because that's the only way I talk to them. Okay, so what were we saying? Look, this is not their password, right? It's a encrypted version of their password. So yay, they're encrypting the password. Right, that's a good thing. That's what we want, right? People should be encrypting passwords. My NBN was knocked out in last night's storm. Yeah, fair enough. That's not uncommon. I was in a meeting with someone and they literally just stopped all of a sudden. So I think they were down just the other side of the border. Apparently, there's big storms. So the problem is the password is encrypted. Okay, so how are we going to do it? Well, luckily for us, there is a command called base64. All right, so we're going to try that. It's probably going to be base64. So I'm going to say echo. Okay, and then the password. At the end of the password, I'm putting an equal sign, right? I can't remember why, but it needs it. And then say base64 minus D. So basically de-encrypt it, right? To reverse it. All right. I've now got my MD5 hash. Right. So I'm going to copy that. So that's given me not the password. This is not the password still. Like you could try it. In fact, you could do that and you can say send it to a file. I'm going to send it to pass.txt. There's the file there. So that little doobie piece there. This little piece here says, look, I want, instead of printing it to the screen, send this output to the file pass.txt, right? And that has done it. And now you can see there's a file there called pass.txt, and we can cat that file, right? And I can see there's the password. Now there's no space, there's no end to it, right? Because when the sort of the deconversion happened, it's been changed. And there's no carriage return, no line, you know, no enter key basically pressed. We could try this as the password, right? Does anyone think this is probably going to be the password? I mean, if you got something like that, you'd still think, man, this guy loves his long passwords, right?
Yep.
You'd just be like. So does anyone have passwords like this that they use?
No.
On a few sites.
And you got something like, you know, one pass, last pass, something like that that keeps them for you, obviously then. There is no way you
Yeah.
can remember
It
passwords
gets
like that, right?
pretty old typing them in pretty quick.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't have passwords quite that long, but I have passwords that are just automatically generated for me. I don't know what they are. I don't really care. They're on my phone via an app. They're on, like, you know, my browser via, like, plugins and stuff like that. Okay, so, look, I might try it. Let's go to that SSH command again, right? Okay, up arrow all the way back. Let's see, there it is, SSH. Ramses. Hello. There we go, it's asking for Ramses' password. So I'm going to paste it in. I don't know if that worked. Paste it in. Still no joy, right? I'm way too old for a technical password like that. Look, it's not the password. I will tell you that right now. They've double encrypted it, which is really good. But I've copied it to a text file. Okay, great. Put it in a text file, or alternatively, like, you know, you could just like copy the output. And then paste it into a text file or something if you want, right? And this is the reason why is because we're going to have to crack the password again, right? So we're cracking it twice. Once was easy. We just changed the type of encoding that they had, right, from base 64, which is a really standard kind of encoding. There are tools you can run on it to try and figure out what it is, or you can learn over time. There's different things that can kind of tell you what it is, or, and there's also you can just start to see what it is. One of the reasons why I was very sure this was MD5 is because there's no capitals in it, right? So notice there's no capitals in there. Yeah. And it only goes A, B, C, D, E, F. Is there anything after F? I think there's nothing after F either. So that sort of tells me, look, it looks like an MD5 sum. At this point, I've got it also saved to a file, right? So I'm going to say nano pass.txt. You can put it in there, press the enter key just to give me a new line. O to save it. Control O to save it. I'll write the file. Control X to exit. Now, by the way, if you just press Control X, it'll say, do you want to save it? Right? Save the modified buffer. In other words, I've got some stuff in memory. It hasn't been saved yet. Do you want to save it? You can say yes. It then says, what's the file name to write? That's exactly the same thing as we had before. And then it'll exit out for you. So we have now saved the, there's no letters Z's, etc. right? And Dean's, Dean, don't paste it in there for us, man. There you go. I deleted it. So yes, it's an MD5. So we need to crack it. So how can we crack it? Look, there's a lot of different ways that we could do it. We're going to use a program called John. Dean, what did you use to do it? we're going to be using John. MD5hashing.net. All right. Yep. Cool. Yeah, there are websites you can do to do that sort of stuff. Good for singles and like 1 or 2 and stuff like that. I've had to do this as well, by the way. Like WordPress and stuff like that stores your password as an MD5, for example. And if I've had to reset my password in, like, I forgot my password on my WordPress site or something, I can go into the database and just replace it with an MD5 that I've built, right? That I know what the password is. But we're going to use John to do this. Okay, so John is the application we're going to use, and we're going to tell it to try and decrypt it. So John. Format is raw MD5. All right. So, and then I'm going to say pass.txt. Whatever you've called the file, right? Okay. Zero password hash is cracked. One password left. I tried to show it. Loaded one password hash. So there it is. So I just ran it without the show, and then afterwards, there we go. We have cracked the password.
I don't have John installed.
You don't have John installed?
Yeah.
In
Weird.
Kali?
In Kali, yeah.
Up the top, click start, or not start, whatever it is.
Yeah. I've got the man page for it. Yeah, I just tried that, Josh. Let me try.
apt install,
Yeah.
Josh. apt install, John.
Yeah, I got John, but not from my shell. Anyway, it's all right. I've got it now.
Okay. Crazy.
Yeah, wasn't working.
Okay, so at this point, we now have a username and a password, right? Now, what's the advantage of using something like John, right? The advantage of something like John is John can actually do a series of passwords all at the same time, right? Some of these websites, look, it might be able to do it. Let's check MD5. What did you do? MD5hashing.net. I'm not going to ask how you know that one. Sometimes they'll take like a number of them in a row or something, like, 10, 15, or 20 on a page or something. Okay. Oh, no, that's not connected to the internet. It's going via my phone. I think the only computer that's connected is this one. Yep, so you can put in, what type of hash it is and stuff like that. That's a pretty good one, right? Lots and lots of differences available. Put in the string, and then hopefully what it will do is it will, redo it for you. Now, what else is out there to help you with things like this instead of trying to get a hash, for example, or trying to decrypt it yourself and stuff? Does anyone know what sort of stuff is out there instead? Stop my share for a moment. Has anyone heard of things like rainbow tables? Right, Daniel's got a slight nod of the head. Right, so you can get a series of either already hashed password lists, and so you can just do a quick search to see what it is, or you could match that password, like that encrypted password, basically, with a with like a known password, because someone's already done all the clock cycles for you. That's basically what we're trying to get rid of, right? It's relatively resource intensive to crack all the passwords and stuff. But we can put them all into a file, which is nice, right? So we can have one file and all the people's passwords, and then we can just go through and crack all their passwords, right? And that's normally what we call an offline password cracking. Done a lot. When people take, for example, you break into someone's system, you get access to, you know, their database of some kind, you get copies of the passwords, you just take it and run, right? And then you can crack what the passwords are later, right? You don't need to crack the passwords right then and there. So then that'll hopefully give you access. And there'll always be someone that doesn't change their passwords and stuff. Yep, you could do dictionary attacks and stuff. What do you mean by a mask attack, Kathy?
I just looked it up on Google and it's called a mask attack, where dictionary attacks use lists of possible phrases. Mask attacks are far more specific in their scope, often refining guesses based on characters or numbers.
Okay, yeah. So we're changing the search parameters, basically. Yeah, I haven't heard of the term mask attack now. Sounds like something from a movie. Attack with the mask. So, actually, it was a movie, The Mask, right? So yeah, look, dictionary attacks, you can have, there are things out there as well called rainbow tables and things like that. Often you have to buy them. Sometimes they'll be quite big files, but, you know, already hashed sort of ones out there. All right, so we've got a username. Now we have a password, right? Like, I'm pretty sure we've gone through it twice, right? I thought I had the password the first time, it wasn't right. Then I thought I had the password a second time, it wasn't right. Okay, now let's go to the password. Let's try it out. Okay, and with the password, you should all hopefully have it. And ta-da, we are in. Now, is everyone able to now log in? Or anyone that can't log in? Okay, now, what do you got to do? Well, you got to try and find the flag. Where do you think the flag might be? You got to find the flag.
In a file somewhere.
Probably be in a file somewhere. Yeah. So we're not there yet. No, we're in. We've now successfully logged into the system. Right. So that's a good start. I'm feeling pretty excited about it. I don't know about you guys. I'm feeling pretty excited. So I'm going to go ls. Right. What's there? Nothing. ls minus a. No, there's nothing there. What's there? Right, the user's got no file sitting there. Just trying to do the roll. User has no file sitting there. What could we check to see what's going on?
We could ls into grep flag.
ls into grep flag. I guess we could, yeah.
Directory or something, or
All right. Yeah, I mean, there's a few options. Blake's not here today. Is Blake not here? Okay. Michael Bell's not here today. Matt Caffrey is here. Dean's here. Kathy's here. My dog's here. Daniel's here. Yeah. Ben's here. Josh Greenwood's here. Mark Hicks is here. Hicks is here. All right, cool. Christian, you're here. You weren't here. Size here. I'm sure I heard Celeste before. Yeah. Josh Mackey. Yep, you're here. Scotty May. Jason Murphy. Kristen is here, and so is Tariq. All right, cool. All right. Thanks for that. I just took a moment out to do the roll while you're all trying to figure out what can we do. So what can we do? What are these files? What are these files? Let me give you a handy hint. If I type history, it shows all the different stuff I've previously done. Right, look at this. You can see previous hackings and all kinds of crazy stuff I've done, right? You know, start and stop stuff and telnetted stuff and SSH stuff, and you can see some logins and some all kinds of cool stuff, right? Yeah. Bash history is where that is stored, right? Your bash RC, so bash is the terminal interface that we're using, the command line interface that we're using. It's called the bash interface, short for born again shell. It's JSON born, not born again hallelujah kind of born, right? It's, so the born again shell is the is a shell. There's lots of other different shells: Z shell, C shell. You know, there's T shell. I think you know, the K shell. There's lots of different shells out there. Is anyone familiar with these? Anyone had or accessed something using a different shell before? The non-standard born or bash shell. Right? All right. So this is what allows our Linux profile and the like, and for us to be able to go through our history and stuff. Right? So it might be an idea. Maybe let's take a look and see what they've done in their shell before. Now, there's two ways we can do it. You can just type history, right? There you go, and it'll give you, in this case, right, I've got about 160 odd things in there in my shell that I've done previously. And if I log out, it will then, whatever I've done recently, which is these ones, right? Like I said, these ones have only been done since I opened it. All these previous ones before number 155 was done previously when I previously logged in or something, right? When I close this shell, right, so if I take a look at this one, for example, so it's just going to, when I take a look at this one, notice they're not quite the same, right? I don't have these Perl, I mean, I've got a few things in there, but they're not the same. When I log out, or when I close this shell, they will go into my history file. Right. So the thing about Linux and stuff as well is you can have like your history, but there's the ability to be logged in multiple times, and it then collates all this history back together. Very handy for us. So let's take a look. Oops. Let's take a look at Ramsey's history. I'm just going to pipe it through to less, so that way it gives me page by page, right? So this is the pipe field, right? And then I'm piping it through to less, so that way, instead of it being super, super long like that, if I go history, pipe less, it gives me one page at a time, right? And then I can press enter to move down one line, or space to move multiple pages, right? So we can see I'm at 104, 105, 106, that's the enter key, and the spacebar will jump 109 to the top of the line. There we go, 110, right? So the less command, or piping something through to less, allows us to scroll through page by page. So I'm going to do that. And he's got, well, only 21 lines there, funnily enough. Okay, so to get out, by the way, of the less command, you press Q to quit. Okay, so Q to quit to get out of it. Anything in there that people like? Anything in there that looks kind of interesting?
You can see that they tried a super user to Eric, SU to Eric.
Yep, so they became someone else. They swapped user to
Oh,
Eric.
is it swap user? For some reason I thought it was super.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So sudo says do this as the super user, but SU says like swap the user.
Ah, yeah, cool. Thanks.
You can actually do sudo as other people as well. Okay, so yep, we've changed to Eric, so that's kind of interesting, right? What would we have to do to be able to change to Eric? Let me just user add. Actually, just gonna very quickly show you something, right? So. Make a user called Tom, right? I'm going to set Tom's password, right? And Tom's password is going to be test, right? So he now has a password called test. And I can log in as Tom, by the way. Like if I logged out and, in fact, oops, this is an interesting option. It's a very poor option. I'm going to just put the computer to sleep. Let's bring it back up. There we go. The password is test, and I can log in as Tom, right? So I've created, maybe not. So I can log in as Tom, right? Doesn't have GUI access. That's fine, right? So Tom is logged in, right? So it's an actual user account, okay? If I want to become Tom, so I say SU Tom, what does it do? Well, it asks me for a password, but whose password is it asking for?
Tom's,
right? So I need to know Tom's password to get in. So could we do SU Eric? We could try it. Someone try it. And maybe try one of the passwords that we already know. Right? So we know 2 passwords now, right? The first one, which was a long time ago, got us through to this page. Was this one asking for a key? And then the second one, right, got us basically to, well, allowed us to log in via SSH. Oops. Allowed us to log in via SSH, right? Got us here. So try and SU to Eric. Does it work? Can anyone try it?
Just got to find the password again.
I'll tell you, like the first one was elite. And the second one, oh, I'll tell you, the second one was Omega. Right. So the first one was elite, the second one was Omega.
And the first one doesn't work.
Okay. First one doesn't work. Second one. Doesn't work either. Okay, so we don't know the password. It's a good try though, right? Good try. And then he exited. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, he logged out basically, right? So if I go exit, I'm now no longer logged in as Tom. I'm logged in as Marcus, right? So I was Tom, and it was a really weird account. I don't know what's happened there, but yeah. So he logged out. Not as Eric, he logged out of himself, right? He's then logged in. He's done an LS, okay, so there's nothing there. He's done a clear, so you've seen me do that a few times, right? Like, you know, I type clear takes me back to the top. CD var dub dub dub. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. Right. Grab it all up. Okay, so he did CD var dub dub. So let's do an ls on var dub dub dub. All right, there's a backup in there. And then he moved into that folder as well. He moved into the backup. So let's copy him. Let's do that. Actually, I mean, yeah, okay. Yeah, let's do that. CD var dub dub. And we'll CD into backup. All right, and what can we see there? Well, we can see a thing called procwatch and a README file. Okay. When you see a README file, what do you do with it? Pay no attention and just try and do stuff, right? It's like the instructions for an IKEA model. Right. What do you do with the IKEA instructions? You throw them away and then you wait and you start building stuff and then you go pick it up and try and figure out where you went wrong, right? So I'm going to say cat README. And he just says I have to fix this next. Okay, not very handy, but lets us know he's got a bit of a mess. Let's do a slightly different ls. What does ls minus l do? Well, it tells me a little bit more about it, right? So it tells me it's owned by root. Okay, that's interesting. It's owned by root. And what the permissions are read, write. This S here, by the way, means it's set to be executed and to run as the user. So that's interesting, right? So that's also known as what's called a sticky bit, right? So if you do a quick Google on what is a sticky bit, right. The sticky bit, right? Or the SUID, SGID, and sticky bits. What do they do, right? Blah, blah, blah. Let's move down. This is all Linuxy permissions and stuff like that. Okay, there we go. This has the SUID permission set, right? We can see that. Note the S where the X would usually indicate permission for the user. Okay. Commonly noted as the SUID, the special permission for the user access level has a simple function. With the SUID, always executes as the user who owns the file. Okay. So, whenever you run the file, it executes as the user who owns it. All right, so who's the owner of this file? Well, that's the root user, right? Okay, so what does procwatch do then? Okay, so it runs some sort of command which runs as a process, right, and tells me what's going on. In fact, it's very similar to this, right? PS. Right? Notice this last command here was PS. Right? However, there's something else running there. Notice I've got bash, right? And that's my born again shell. When I ran procwatch, right, I got PS, I got procwatch, and I got sh as well. Okay. So before he ran that command as well. Okay. He then ran a clear sudo -s and a few other things, ifconfig, ipadd, which http, and he pinged some stuff, right? Okay, so I'm assuming it's a he, I don't know, Ramses. He's done that. Okay, so procwatch runs the ps command. What can I do with that? Procwatch runs the ps command. What can we do with it? We've got to get a little tricky at this point. Now, I know they're running the PS command, right? So if they're running the PS command, I might want to do a little bit of funky business, right? A little bit of naughty business. What can we do? Well, has anyone had to break into Windows before, like a Windows, or run, like, you know, some sort of, there's a way you can sort of reset or get into Windows without knowing people's passwords and stuff, and you replace a file, right? You replace a particular file. Is that the way you've done it? Like you replace a file that...
Yeah, you replace the file that runs the accessibility options on the start screen. So you rename or replace it with a cmd.exe. So you get to the logon screen and you can open a command prompt and create a user and add that user to the administrator group.
Yeah, so I mean, look, there's a number of different ways to do this, to do that kind of stuff, right? And that's a really common way of doing it, right? So what you do is you, as Daniel said, is you replace a file, and the file that you replace it with a command prompt, right? Something like what we've got now. We've got a shell here, right? We've got a shell, a PS, and a shell. Now we can try and do something very, very similar. So this is the same sort of stuff. Now, there are other ways to break into Windows and stuff, right? I'm not encouraging you to break into Windows. I'm just saying, look, you know, if you can get your hands on someone's physical computer, chances are you can break into it, right? In fact, basically, if I can touch your computer 9 times out of 10, I'm getting in. So the only thing that'll keep me out is full disk encryption, right? If you've got full disk encryption, then you'll be very lucky that I won't be able to get in. So we're going to do something very, very similar. We're going to replace, or we're going to manipulate some files to try and allow us to use or to have a path so at the moment, when I run stuff, these are the locations that it runs all my files from, right? So when I say something like echo, if I say which echo, it says, well, that's in /bin, right? Now that's one of my locations here, right? /bin. Right? So I want to try and run, or I want to use this proc watch kind of stuff, right? Which is going to run a command sh and a command ps, right? I want to run procwatch to try and do a similar thing where, like we did in Windows, yeah, so we're going to reassign procwatch to try and execute something else, because what procwatch does, ooh, that's nasty. What procwatch does, sorry, that's just to give you an idea, this is an actual binary file, right? So it's what runs. So you don't really get to see sort of what's going on. It's like the Windows equivalent of an exe file. So you can't really see what it's doing. But when we run procwatch, we capture the fact that we're doing that. It runs sh and it runs ps, and we want to try and get it to run something else like sh, but a different sh. So how are we going to do it? Well, we already know where sh is, right? If I go which sh, it says it runs from /bin /sh. All right. So I'm going to put a file called sh here, because the path runs, it checks first this location, then this location, then this location, then this, right? It works its way through a number of locations. And I'm going to change my path after I've moved some or made a new file. And I'm going to tell it to run a file in another location. So I'm going to say echo, right? Now you'll notice I've used the word echo a bit. Echo basically says print to the screen kind of stuff, but we can send it somewhere else. /bin /sh to a file called ps. So I'm copying the shell, right, to a file called PS. Because the first thing it's going to do, though, is it's going to run SH. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to run that to SH as well. So it's going to try and run this and then run that. Now, the question is, who does ProcWatch run as?
It runs as Eric, isn't it?
No, it runs as root.
Of course.
Right? It runs as root, which is really naughty. Right? No, we're not using the ln command, right? Yeah, we're just going. Yeah, I'm basically copying. That's one way to kind of copy the file, right? But I don't have the ability to copy these files, but I can. If I can read it, I can read it and then send the output to somewhere else. So I've done those. We need to do one more thing though, right? They're not executable at the moment, right? I can't execute them. They're owned by me, Ramsey. I need to make them executable. Right. So I'm going to say chmod plus X, right? And we're going to say PS, and then the same thing with SH. Right. There we go. Oops. Now the files are executable, which means they can be run like a program. So when ProcWatch tries to run, it can then run these files. However, it's not going to, right? Because when I run it at the moment, it goes and finds them in another location. So we're going to have to edit our path. We're going to have to edit this path a little bit and put our current location, var dub backup, at the very front. So I don't want it to start going to user local bin and user bin, etc. Because it's sequential, I can say, start running it, right? Take a look in this first location. And that first location is going to be where we are, right? So I'm going to say export the path. Now that's an environment variable. Windows has them, Linux has them, Mac has them. Every operating system has these things called environment variables. It tells it where to do stuff. And we're going to say /var /dub/backup, which is where I am, right? And then I'm going to say colon path, which says, not if you remember, right? I said echo $path, right? It just basically says, and then attach all the rest of this to the end of it. And now my path has that in front of it. At this point, when ProcWatch tries to run, the first thing it's going to try and do, right, is it's going to try and run SH. Fine, right? And I could tell as well, by the way, by these numbers here, right? They're process IDs, right? They're the application's number, basically. And you'll notice that application's number, you'll notice the application's number keeps changing, right? So it's ProcWatch is going to try and run PS, but the first place it's going to look for PS is here. So it's going to try and run the PS command. Then it's going to try and run the shell. Right? And hopefully we will be able to force it to open my shell here. However, I'm technically the user Ramses. So will it open as a shell me or will it open as the shell root? What do you guys think?
Root.
Yeah, look, normally when I run something like ProcWatch, right, it would run as me, right? I'm the person that started it. However, because of this little bit that they've set there to run as the root user, it will execute these as the root user, not as me. So when I say /ProcWatch, I am now in a privileged mode. And as I like to tell all my students when we're playing with Linux and when we're playing with Cisco and stuff like that, I've got a few of my other students in here. Privileged people get what? They get tickets to Amsterdam. Right?
Root.
Privileged people, yeah, look, they get root, but that little hash symbol there, right, tells me, right, that little hash symbol tells me that I'm in privileged mode, right? That's my little druggy joke. That's about as good as I can get. One of my mates has been to Amsterdam a few times. He's Dutch. His family lives there, so I think that's his excuse technically. So who am I? I am now root. I am the root user.
You can get the bin hash, SH file now.
Right? And we can. So what we have done is by running that proc watch, it then executed these files, right? And it gave me the ability to run as root, because when it ran sh, so if you do something like this, right? If you go bash, right? It runs another version of itself, right? So I've now, in the bash, I've gotten out, and then, you know, I can exit out again and it's disappeared, right? So we are now running as root. Yay, we've done it, right? You got to get a flag. Where is the flag, do you think? Well, now that we are root, what can we do? If I type cd, that takes me right to my home directory. I'm kind of root, I'm kind of not. I'm in this weird state. Can I gain access to the root user's account? Yes, I can. There it is. And if you can get there, you can read it. Now I'm not going to do it for you. Autocomplete won't work and stuff, by the way. But if you cap that, oh damn it, that file. If you cut the file, you will get some information, all right? And you can read it, and you can check out what it says and stuff, and it's proof. And if you want, you can follow the instructions and stuff like that. All right, so we have successfully done. We found, and I will say, it's not very likely to happen, but you know, we found a hidden image, a hidden piece of data in an image that led us to a web page or a folder on the server, a hidden folder, which is really common, by the way. Hidden folders. Lots of people have started to hide their WordPress login page, because WordPress has a known kind of login page, WP-admin, I think it is. And so people have started changing that, so that way you can't try and brute force attack their passwords and stuff. So it's relatively common to try and hide stuff. It's not a really good, what's the root history look like? You can take a look. All your base belong to us. Love it, old school. Yeah, it's quite common to try and obfuscate, right? It's called security through obscurity, right? So you just make it hard to find. You make it an unknown port. For example, this was port 777. You know, so you try and hide some stuff and add a few extra layers to maybe make it a bit difficult. But at the end of the day, it didn't work for us, right? We were able to figure it out. We did a good scan on the server, and we were able to see that, oh, okay, SSH was running on port 777, right? Excellent. So we could use that to try and log in. Then we finally managed to, you know, get some usernames and stuff. We were then able to, using this, we were able, because it was connected to a database, we were able to break in using the SQL map, and then SQL map allowed us to start to work with the database. we were then able to download a copy or get access to the database. I have it in my history. So my history at the moment. So we were then able to go through the database, grab the password. At the point that we grabbed the password, we were able to start to decrypt it. They'd hashed it, or they'd dealt with it twice, right? So they'd MD5'd it, and they used base 64 encoding. Base 64 encoding, by the way, pretty common, especially if people are trying to sort of hide data and stuff like that. They do that sometimes in things like Word docs as part of their worms and viruses and things like that. It's a pretty common thing. So, you know, we were able to get it out to at least an MD5, and then from an MD5, we were able to crack it. I think it was Dean that cracked it by using a website. Yes, there are websites that you can put those kinds of things in. There are also, you know, tools built in, such as John, or John the Ripper, I think is its full name, which has built-in tools to be able to try and crack passwords. And a bit like the password cracking we used to get into the original web page, to get into this one, right? We used a brute force attack on this. John the Ripper can do something very similar to that if you want, but it's also got, you know, built-in reversing options, which is what we used. Then we were able to finally SSH in. Once we were able to get on the box, though, we couldn't. We were logged in as Ramses, and we were just very lucky that we found there was a file that was running as another user, right? And that file was running as the root user, and we were able to then, a bit like the Windows had, you know, accessibility tools issue, we were able to replace the files like that. And then we used procwatch to run this SH, and that got us to root. So ultimately, it was eventually, it was eventually a privilege escalation. I mean, there was actually a lot more investigation in it as well. Right, so there was a bit of investigation in regards to, there was steganography, which is looking at that image that you can see in the background there. Then there was some SQL. What was it? No. So then there was some password cracking. So there was just like a really hardcore brute force password cracking. Then there was this was a really simple one. Right? No SQL injection kind of stuff, but they used SQL injection up here. That's what SQL map did. It used SQL injection up here, and then the SQL injection gave us access to the database. Once we had access to the database, that's when we started cracking the passwords and stuff. So in the cyber, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, probably more than once. In the cyber kill chain, or the Lockheed, I think it's the full name is technically the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain. It's all about like reconnaissance and then enumeration, and there's a few different sort of terms that they use, and then you run some exploits and the like. So it was we were working up a chain. Just the first thing was, okay, what do I have access to? Okay, I got access to a web page, and then, can I get access to an account on the system? Yes, I got access to an account. Once we were logged onto the system, we then have to try and get to that root privilege escalation there. So you're kind of right. Ultimately, it was at the end of it, it was a privilege escalation. First, we had to try and get in. And look, it's almost time. Like, you know, it's 6:25-ish. Overall, we've done it. Took a little while. Lots of I think lots of learning and stuff in there as well. Lots of new tools and stuff. What I will do as well is I will show you, there is a whole document that I'll give you now, or I'll give you the rest of the document, which gives you a sort of step-by-step on how to do it. I think there might be one, as I said, there's 1 or 2 steps that might be a little bit out of it, but
that's in the link, isn't it?
could you post the lab Nullbyte CTF challenge? You mean that document, you mean?
It should be all in there already. I got it today.
Yes, but the first one that you had stopped. The first version stopped where we stopped on Monday.
Okay, cool. All
right. So yeah, and look, I've got little notes in there and stuff like that. And look, you can find this online. Like if you do a Google for Nullbyte, or you can find it on Vuln for example. But yes, I will post it. In fact, I'll drop it in right now. It'll just take a few seconds for it to upload. Yeah, I'm also recording it as well. I've just got to edit it quickly. So I'll probably do it over the weekend, because I do things like, show my encrypted passwords and stuff like that. And so it's not exactly good that a few of those things that I've shown.
Oh, just a quick question.
Shoot.
When you change the environment variables, you had to do that before you actually got into the root, right? So you could have the SH file.
Correct. Yes. So
okay.
I have to do that because just like with the Windows one, so with Windows, what is it, accessibility, and that there's like a button on the, there's a button on the bottom of the login screen that's kind of like an hourglass or something like that, that runs a little accessibility tool. And when you replace that with like the command prompt, instead of opening the accessibility tool, it opens up a command prompt, and it's running as the system. Now that's a problem with Windows, because the applications that the Windows itself runs as the system user, for want of a better term. Whereas with us, we don't quite have that same issue with Linux, but we have certain applications that run as, for example, root. And this application ran as root, the ProcWatch ran as root. So we got it through the that path by changing our path. I don't think it'll be there.
So this was more a bad configuration issue where the administrators hadn't applied the best security, you say?
Yeah, look, exactly. I mean, what they've done is they've made their life a little bit easier by making ProcWatch run as root, but by doing that, they've made it so that way, and the other thing was they've left it in a folder that's kind of everyone can access, right? So if it was locked in the /root folder or something, well then we wouldn't have access to it. But they've made it accessible to pretty much everyone, and as such, yeah, they've sort of had a bit of a misconfiguration, which happens a lot, right? Because we try and make stuff a little bit easy for ourselves, or like really common thing, for example, is people put Amazon S3 buckets, and they're just open to world readable kind of stuff, right? Because they're trying to move stuff in and out, and they're like, oh, I'll just do this quickly and I'll come back and fix it later. And it's normally that band-aid fix that you never actually get rid of the band-aid that causes problems. So it's a bit of a misconfiguration, and it's a little bit of a laziness, I guess, in some respects. But that's the little hole that we used to get our way through. Yeah. So hopefully you guys have had a bit of fun with that, like sort of seeing, I guess, a full suite of different tools, different the ability for different pieces to sort of daisy chain together to get us all the way through. Because a lot of the time in cybersecurity we're talking about, we've had a cybersecurity breach. Okay, cool. Or we say things like, you've got to secure your web server, or secure this, or secure that, and it's very piecemeal. Whereas this sort of shows the full gamut of working your way from just trying to find the server, all the way through to now you own the server. It's you. You can do anything you want. And that's kind of what a lot of people do. Bit of reconnaissance at the start, try and find some stuff, and then worm their way in. And a lot of stuff is actually available as well. The biggest issue there is normally people have stuff available on the internet. You know, and so you can start seeing, you know, what is someone's child's name? Okay, maybe they're using that as a password, you know? Or Trump's, you know, what was it, MAGA 2020 exclamation mark kind of stuff, you know? Things like that, you know, that's just ridiculous, but people can be a little bit predictable. I think that's enough for tonight. We're supposed to finish around about now, aren't we? Yeah, 7:30. I hope you've had a bit of fun. I'm going to go have a pizza. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Get started on the assessments if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Marcus. Thank you.